Have you guys calmed down yet? Because I haven't.
No.
I haven't. Amad Diallo, rookie. Amad Diallo.
But that goal at the weekend probably earns him legendary status.
You know what Amad Diallo has done is he's put himself on the map with that goal. That goal was a poetry in motion, I have to say. It was beautifully done.
We were stood by the away end, and it was just, and the faces of those City fans like storming out.
I'm not going overboard here, but I think you're getting England Maguire again. But I just kept looking at City going, they're there. Marcus Rashford is for sale.
It feels like he's already used his 9 lives.
I feel like there's no doubt as to who's in charge here.
Hello and welcome to Inside Devils talkSPORT's Man United show, bringing you the latest and the biggest reaction coming out of Old Trafford. What a show we have for you today after the most glorious of Manchester derbies. We did it. We all believed we was going to do it. Not one of us predicted a loss. We all knew we was going to win. Some of us did. Crooky. But joining me, of course, to go through this week's games and our reaction to everything is Alex Crook, Angelina Kelly and Ryon Scott-Douglas. And first things first, have you guys calmed down yet? Because I haven't.
No.
I haven't calmed down yet. I'm still on it, Crooky.
Yeah, I'm the same. I watched the highlights again with the kids last night. I was shouting Amad Diallo's name up the stairs. They went to bed and bouncing around the tunnel in the Etihad on Sunday. It was just, it was a great moment. And listen, football's about moments, and there's been some pretty low ones in the last decade or so. But when it comes to the Premier League campaign, that's one of the high points, isn't it? That 2 goals in the last 4 minutes to win a Manchester derby. Fantastic.
It was brilliant. And you know what? We have to just start there. There's no better place to start than Sunday's dramatic late win at the Etihad Stadium. Angelina, you predicted the W, right?
Woo!
Yeah.
How about that?
And we gave you a bit of stick. Oh, you don't really believe that.
You gave me a lot of stick,
I did.
actually. Yeah.
I did, didn't I?
I'm still waiting for my apology. But
I apologise. I had to apologise to a lot of people, like
Yeah.
our own communities, like all the Man United fans that were saying, Flex, believe they're not that good. I just didn't believe that we would be able to exploit them.
Because you've been hurt so many times.
Because I've been hurt, I'm
Flex.
so
Yeah,
scarred.
it is. I get
But,
it.
you know, you knew.
Yeah.
You knew.
It was, like I'd already said, Man City were in and still are in such a worse state than Man United when you consider the whole package of what's going on. And I just had this feeling that at the Etihad, they could get something from this game. And listen, it wasn't a derby for the ages, let's be honest. It was pretty mediocre. But for United fans, I think, to get a special moment like that, you know, the end of the game, to get the win, it's just so special. And you struggle to think of times when you've had a feeling as good as that.
It was unbelievable. Of course, there were, before the games, massive headlines that were circulating around the surprising discovery that there was no Marcus Rashford and no Alejandro Garnacho. They were left out of the squad. And here's what Ruben Amorim had to say about that after full time.
It was not a disciplinary thing. Next week, next game, new life. They are fighting for the places, but for me it's important the performance in training, the performance in game, the way you dress, the way you eat, the way you engage with the teammates, the way you push your teammates. Everything is important in our context in the beginning of Sunday when we want to change a lot of things, when people in our club are losing their jobs. We have to put the standards really high. And for that, they have to fight for the place in the team, and today the team proved that we can leave anyone outside the squad. You can manage to win if we play together.
Not mixing his words at all, Ruben Amorim. It was a breath of fresh air to the United fan base to see our gaffer in control of the situation. Ryan, Jamie Jackson, a good friend of the show, has had a massive piece in The Guardian sort of saying that Marcus Rashford is for sale. They want him to leave the football club, and these are the beginning members of that. Firstly, was it the right decision, or what do you make of the decision from Ruben Amorim to omit Garnacho and Rashford from the squad? And 2, what do you make of this whole situation that, Rashford is on the for sale list?
Well, firstly, it was vindicated, wasn't it, his decision, because we ended up getting the victory. So you have to say that the decision was a right one. I'm all for it. I'm a massive fan of Garnacho, you know that. But I'm all for them not making the cut if they're not training well. And he's alluded to behavioural things there as well, and attitude and how you eat and sit with the players and all that jazz.
Do you think you're going to see someone coming out fighting and saying, I'm embarrassed that was said about me? That's not happening. My Man United career is staying intact. Or do you think we will continue to see the same Marcus that we've seen for the last little while?
It's such an interesting question, isn't it? Because Marcus Rashford may have already had his last chance. I'm not, in terms of longevity, I'm not going to lie to you. But there's still a squad of players here, and he still has attributes, and he still may contribute to some serious results come the end of the season.
Crookie, let's just get to the chase. Do you think Marcus Rashford will leave in January? Do you expect him to leave in January? And what difficulties does that actually come with? Who would take Marcus Rashford in January? What would that deal even look like?
Well, that's the 400 grand a week question, isn't it? I've done a piece in my notebook for the talkSPORT website this week saying there is interest from Saudi Arabia. I'm told that Rashford isn't particularly keen to make that move. He still believes actually he can find his form and force his way back into the England squad for the 2026 World Cup, which seems a distant dream at this moment in time. But I spoke to Ruben Amorim afterwards as well. I said, how confident are you that these two players are going to react positively to what you've done? Because there's been high-profile instances in the recent past where players have not reacted positively, and he said they have to. It's not in my hands, it's in their hands. And if they train properly and they react in the right manner, there is a way back. So I think he's handled it absolutely superbly. I sort of agree with what Ryan has said about Rashford. It feels like he's already used his 9 lives. You know, this is a long-term problem going back to the start of last season. We had the incident before that, actually, when he was dropped for the game at Wolves for reporting late for a team meeting. He did react well on that occasion, if you remember. He came off the bench in the second half and scored. So he needs to summon that kind of reaction again. But listen, football is a small world. Manchester is a small world. We all know the stories when it comes to Marcus Rashford and maybe not looking after himself in the right way off the pitch. And I think that's what Amorim was alluding to. So until he changes that, I don't see a way back.
And it is a tough one because no Man United fan wants to see Marcus Rashford in this way. You know, you are Manc born on bread as well, just as Marcus Rashford is, Angelina. And first, I'll ask you, obviously, you know, your reaction to the Marcus Rashford situation, but also for Ruben Amorim, what sort of a marker is this for him to put down to say, I'm not tolerating this. This is the Manchester derby, and I'm giving myself 2 less weapons to use in our armoury that could really help us off the bench and make it more limited to us out of principle.
I feel like there's no doubt as to who's in charge here. There's so much conversation about the players thinking that they can kind of do what they want, they can behave how they want. My takeaway from the way that he spoke and what he said, and you could read between the lines, but he put it so eloquently and it left me feeling like this is someone who is in charge of this group of players and is, at the end of the day, what did he say in his press conferences? He wanted players to care, to run, to work hard. If those players aren't giving that as a bare minimum, then the right to be dropped. Obviously, had the scoreline been different, I'm sure people would have had a different opinion.
But would he have still been right, though? Even if we'd lost that game 5-0, would it still been right out of principle?
He would have been right, but what the win has done is it's empowered him in the dressing room. Because had they have lost the game, then I'd imagine that Rashford and Garnacho could have walked back into training this week and said, well, you know, the manager's dropped us, you've lost the game. It would have put the power
Media
in their
certainly would have done that. The questions after the game.
Well, it's interesting you say that. I was speaking to some of the journalists at half-time.
You
I wouldn't, because actually I backed the decision.
That's true.
You know, I'm fully behind the decision. But speaking to some of the written journalists at half-time, they said to me, you know, if you're going to drop Rashford and Garnacho, you can't lose. So I think the narrative would have been very different had they not scored those late goals.
And you think he's reclaimed that narrative, Ange?
Yeah, I think he's legitimised himself, hasn't he? That he can make these big calls. And I think it's an important message that if you're not on your A game, then you're not going to be considered. I think that it was interesting, you know, like Marcus Rashford put something on social media, Garnacho hasn't. Again, you can start reading it in between. No, probably not too much. I mean, I think that had Rashford not put anything on socials, I think people would have jumped on it like, oh, is he throwing his toys out of his pram or something? I don't know. I think that was a good move to just kind of say, oh, you know, he's watching the game, he's supporting the lads, etc. I think the Marcus Rashford situation in general, though, we've spoken about it time and time again. You know, it's time to cut that cord. I just feel like I don't see January happening, though, because why do clubs sign players in January? Because you need someone who's going to make an impact, who's going to change things, who's going to hit the ground running most of the time. He's not going to do that. I highly doubt he's going to do that. So on top of who's going to be interested, who's going to pay the money, his numbers just aren't there, and it's sad. And he's given Manchester United fans some great moments, but when you look across the whole thing, you know, I don't think he's had a Premier League season where he's got 20 goals plus.
Yeah, no, I hear what you're saying, and we'll have to see what happens against Spurs, whether these guys are back in the squad.
Yeah,
We'll
it's
talk
gonna be
about that.
interesting.
Yeah, we'll talk about that a little bit later in the show. That's the negatives out the way, and now it's time to talk about glorious positives, because Amad Diallo, rookie, Amad Diallo, you said you were singing his name while the kids were on their way to bed, probably keeping them up. How impressed were you with his performance and just him in general? Unbelievable.
I thought he was fantastic. I thought he was like a little terrier, really hunting down mistakes in the City defence, trying to win the ball back high up the pitch. And actually, the second goal sort of epitomised it for me. I did Lissandro Martinez an injustice when I was on air on the Sunday session, because I said it was a hopeful punt upfield. It
Hopeful?
wasn't. No, it wasn't.
Is that what he said?
Yeah. It
Rookie's
wasn't.
so
I know.
hopeful.
It was-
Pinpoint.
It was amazing.
It was a brilliant ball,
incredible.
and he'd actually done it a few minutes earlier as well.
he did.
But a lot of players would have given that up, because Ederson was the favourite to win that ball. But Amad was determined to get there. OK, he's benefited from the fact that Ederson probably shouldn't have come as far up his line as he did, and then he hesitated when he got there. But the fact that he kept going made that goal, really, and to still have the speed of thought once he'd flicked it over the goalkeeper to finish into the bottom corner as he did was a majestic moment. And actually, if you look at Amad Diallo's United career, he's a cult hero because of what he did against Liverpool in the FA Cup. But that goal at the weekend probably earns him legendary status. And I'm delighted for him, because I've said before, we're talking about players who maybe don't have the best attitude to the game. Amad Diallo is the polar opposite of that. He works hard in training every day. He's humble. He gets the football club. He knows what it means to play for the badge. And he's had to be patient, by the way.
Absolutely.
There have been times when he's not
Years.
been happy with Manchester United managers, but he's reacted in the right way. And in some ways, he's the illustration, isn't he? He's the example that Rashford and Garnacho should be looking to.
Get your head down. I mean, for you, Ryan, as far as Derby Day goals go, we've had some great ones, especially in the last minute. You look at Van Persie for the free kick at the Etihad. Of course, that was when we're trying to win the title, so it's got different connotations. You look, I remember Paul Scholes' header.
Yeah.
Owen as well. Yeah, exactly, at Old Trafford. There's been a lot. Wayne Rooney overhead kick, but in terms of Derby goals to decide them, especially at the Etihad, that's right up there from Amad.
It was absolutely gorgeous. That goal was a poetry in motion, I have to say. It was beautifully done. To be at full stretch for that touch, as both feet were off the ground at one point, it was unbelievable. And you know what? In terms of the actual squad itself, player by player, it's not happening all together, and this is what it's going to take time. But certain players you can see now are just starting to click and adapt to this system. In terms of the players that I saw, Amad's one of them. I think he's been the first one to click into it, whether it's right wing back or whether it's in this 10.
What do you think his best position is now? Because we were crying out when he was at right wing back.
We were.
We need him closer to the goal. We need him in there. But then we went, there's nothing really coming from the right wing back. We need maybe his best position's there, and we get some. What is it? Or it just doesn't matter as long as he's on the pitch.
Whatever he wants to play that day, I reckon.
Get him in goal.
But you know what? Get him in goal. Get him in goal. Do you know what? I think the 10. I'm not going to lie. I think the Bruno Amad 10 situation there was fantastic, because it is it's a fluid system where those 10s can drift out wide, which suits him down to the ground, but he can obviously come inside as well. And the reason why I'll say not right wing back is because I think we found our right wing back. Because Mazraoui is one of those players I think that is going to click into this system very, very well. Because you can see I really was interested on how these wing backs are going to work. But I'm already starting to see it. And you can argue we're over-reliant on them at the moment. That won't always be the case. It will be in central areas more and more. But one wing-back will press while the other sits back to bolster the defence a little bit more. Or they can both commit and distract. While the centres do their thing, the 2-10s do their thing. It's phenomenal. And Mazraoui was one of those players that did that and did it really well. The switch is always on as well. Yeah. So if we get that left wing-back position sorted, I think that would be phenomenal. Lissandro Martinez, you mentioned you thought it was hopeful at the time, but you've come around to the line of thinking it was deliberate, and it was, because that Højlund penalty shout was another ball that was virtually identical. Yeah. He's another player that those ball-playing centre-backs want to go over into the channels. And that is exactly what Amorim wanted. It's what I heard he wanted before he took the job. And I saw that in the Manchester derby. So look, it was just amazing to watch.
Angelina, for you, just before we finish off on Amad and move on to other players and talk more about the game, for Amad, how important is it now that the hierarchy get this new contract done? I mean, there have been reports today that they're very comfortable with where they're at, and they're looking to get it by the end of the year. But you just look at it now, just hurry up, get this kid signed.
Yeah, I mean, there were reports about, like articles about like Harry Maguire and listen, Harry, just calm down a minute. We've got bigger fish to fry at the minute. Let's get Ahmad over the line, and then we'll think about, players like Harry Maguire. No offence, but yeah, of course, I'm pretty sure that. Considering, this term ruthless with Ineos, whether that's a good word or bad word, you would like to think that with everything going on, this is something that they're going to prioritise and this is something that they're going to sort out. But yeah, I thought he was brilliant. It was a game of kind of perseverance from him. You saw in the first half, the runs weren't quite on point. There was a couple of flags. And just as the game went, he just kept going and going and going. And that's what you want to see from your players. And yeah, I take my hat off to him. And I thought it was interesting that Amorim had said something about we don't want to make the same mistakes and talking about protecting a player.
Basically saying, you guys always do this. I've read about you fans.
Yeah, he's like,
you gas up all the players, hype them up, and then all of a sudden they don't reach the levels.
And he said, about Ten Hag, and Ruud van Nistelrooy did a good job with him. And it kind of made me feel like, is it also a bit of a hint of, Ten Hag kind of brought him in and then dropped him and just didn't utilise him in the right way? Was he maybe trying to say, we're not going to make the same mistakes of this kid needs to keep playing? He's undroppable at the minute.
Yeah. Do you know what? You know what Amad Diallo has done? He's put himself on the map with that goal. For him personally, obviously, we love him and we know what he's capable of. But for him personally, he's put himself on the map. I've spoken to fans and said, would you take Amad? Rival fan bases. I'm not sure. And in my mind, I'm thinking, what? You wouldn't add him to your squad? Well, now...
Yeah, it's a bit different now, isn't it?
They'll be saying yes.
They're all waxing lyrical about him. I mean, let's talk about some other players, though, Crookie, because Harry Maguire slotting into this back three, for me, I'm not going overboard here, but I think you're getting England Maguire again. You get, when he's just really comfortable. Let's just say it as it is. Yeah. And I think because he's not the captain anymore, because he's not playing every single game with the scrutiny and the spotlight all on him, he's coming in, I tell you what, against Arsenal, no problem. Against Manchester City, no problem. As that central centre-back with protection either side, protection just in front from Ugarte and Mainu or Ugarte and Casemiro, whoever it may be, he's looking all right.
He is, and they've got a decision to make there, haven't they? Because there is a year's option in the contract.
What do you think they should do?
I think they might trigger it now. And when we did a quite brutal assessment of the squad, didn't we?
Wincing.
I think we all said that maybe it was time to cut our losses with Maguire. But because there's not, a bucket full of cash to spend, if you've got someone there who clearly fits the system, I think he wants to do well, Maguire, by the way. I wouldn't question his attitude or his mentality. Then maybe he is worth keeping around for the reasons that you say. But yeah, he was mightily impressive. I mean, he kept Haaland in his pocket, really, didn't he? So full credit to him. Ugarte, I thought, did well as well. He's getting better game by game. And I'm going to have to mention Anthony off the bench. Not just Sunday, but I commentated the game in Pilsen, which was a tough commentary for the first hour or so. But he made the changes, didn't he, second half, and obviously took off Rashford and Xerxes. But Anthony was one of the players who came on and made a really positive impact. And I think this is what you've got to admire about Amorim, because let's be honest, Anthony was done as a Manchester United player before he came in. And he still might be, by the way. But he's given him an opportunity. It's that clean slate that he promised, and Anthony is taking it. And I think, actually, again, the system suits him as well.
Yeah.
But this is what we need, though, and we don't want to fall into the trap of, if Anthony has a good rest of the season, it's like, oh, yeah, we'll keep... No, he still needs to go. But this is a situation... This is a situation, and I mentioned it, we saw Amorim do this at Sporting Lisbon, getting the best out of players so that we can at least sell them on and do good business. I think a lot of these players, I agree about Harry Maguire. I think squad depth is also important, and I think he's a player, whether you're starting him or having him in your squad. I also think he's a good character to have, because I don't think he's a bad person. I mean, we all saw the Oscar performance from Kyle Walker. Maguire was in there.
Yeah, he was fighting the cause.
He had Højlund's back in that situation. I don't think you can question his character, but I think a couple of other players, I want them to get the game time. I want him to get the best out of them, but more looking at how can we get some of these players out and get good money for them, even if we're just getting them to look decent enough that we're selling them for something. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. So I think with players like that, it's important. Maybe Anthony will convince me, I don't know, but for me, it's good. Yeah. It's good to see, but he's still not doing what he said at the beginning of the season. You're going to see a completely different me, and I'm going to flip the world on its head.
Well, we've got to give him some more chances. We'll see. I'll come back to you, Ryan, on on the Harry Maguire situation. I saw you wincing. I saw you shaking your head.
Just writhing a little bit. Just
he's not
bit.
having it. But just on Ruben Amorim quickly. I mean, that is our first away win against top six opposition. Thoroughbred top six opposition. I know we've beaten Villa and stuff like that. But you know, top six historically since 2021 under Ollie. Does that prove already that, you know, Ruben Amorim's, he's got a bit of the muscles, got a bit of chops, an appetite for this role? Absolutely.
And lest we forget, he's beat them twice with 2 teams this season because he did it with Sporting Lisbon as well. Yeah. And he actually reverted back to a formation he used during the Manchester derby as well when Sporting beat them. So look, he's all about it. And as I say, player by player is starting to click out. I forgot to mention Ugarte, which Crook you mentioned. He was tenacious and he's starting to develop into a player that we can... And you know what? Going back to a few shows ago, I think it was Danny Murphy who said we wouldn't see Ugarte and Kobbie Mainoo together. And we saw it. And for parts of the game, it really worked.
Kobbie grew into the game quite well because it was a really tough one for Mason Mount. Yeah, well. You know, really, really tough. You could see it on him. The players really, really felt it for him. And future's looking very bleak for him in injuries.
Luke Shaw territory.
Exactly. It's not looking great. Mason Mount's only 25, but his body just keeps breaking down, bless him.
Yeah.
But Kobbie, when he came on, a couple of loose passes, a little bit rusty.
Yeah.
Then as the game went on, Ryan, he just
switching the play, pinging the ball around, a press resistant. I actually felt they complemented each other really well, and I'm looking forward to seeing that partnership. Going back to what you said about Harry Maguire, and I do need to be careful. I mean, the reason why I'm here is a Harry Maguire video. So I do need to be careful not to become a Harry Maguire basher. But I will say, players overstaying their welcome at Manchester United has been a big issue over the last 10 years. And look, if it's in terms of we don't have anyone else to get and there's not enough cash and he's happy to rotate, I get what everyone's saying about England, Maguire's back and in a back three, that's where he flourishes. I still don't feel like he's good enough to play for Manchester United. I'm just going to put that out there. That is, I'm quite passionate about that because he's got a few mistakes in him off the ball. Which I think even came to fruition against Arsenal as well, defending the set pieces. So look, he does have some good attributes, and he played fantastically in that derby. And I like him. Don't get me wrong, but players overstaying their welcome for me. I think Harry Maguire falls into that category. I'm sorry.
I think he might justify it because we have other priorities to fix, and also he's got 1 year left on his deal. Evans has got to leave on a free, and Lindelof's got to leave on a free. If you add Maguire into that and we now play with 3 centre-halves and you need 6, how on earth are you going to go and get 3 centre-halves?
I agree with that logic. I do agree with that logic.
190k a week he's on, which is a lot for a bench player. But then if you say that's like, 10 million a year, basically?
Yeah.
How much is it going to cost you if you save with Evans and Lindelof? So their wages about another, let's say 20 million package of wages of all of them. For 20 million quid, are you going to be able to go and get 3 other centre-halves to go and help us out?
No.
I don't think you can. So I feel like he might, just the economics might save him alone. And he can play the system and just come in here and there. But we shall see. We shall see in the summer. Just before we move on, in terms of derby days, where are you ranking that? I'm going to go ask all 3.
Well, I mean, I guess in terms of what it means in the context of the season, they've been far bigger. You know, you talked about it. I commentated the Van Persie goal, actually. And obviously Rooney's overhead kick. The Owen goal for me was a standout one because that was the time when City was sort of trying to close the gap. They were chirping up a little bit, and Owen put them back in their place. So I don't think it's that level. No. But in terms of away Manchester derbies in recent years, it's up there.
Angelina?
Yeah, I'd probably agree. I think overall, I mean, I must confess, I watched 70 minutes of the game and then for talkSPORT work purposes had to then get myself to the Etihad Stadium. Great decision from Manchester Council and the powers that be to have Paul McCartney playing the same night, a stone's throw away from the Etihad. So I was actually listeling to Alex Crook and Sam Matterface on the Sunday session.
Did he do a good job? Did he make you feel like...
Yes. Yes.
As I stay neutral?
No, but I'm not mad at that. You were allowed. I was racing through a sea of City fans leaving early.
Oh, yeah? Fire drill?
Allegedly. But one thing I will say, I was stood outside, working, obviously, and the noise of the United fans it was absolutely amazing. We were stood by the away end.
Lovely.
And it was just, and the faces of those City fans, like storming out on the phone to people, like slagging us off. And I was just stood there hoping no one would recognise me.
Yeah.
But yes,
Did you get recognised? Was you all right? Was you good?
No, I was good. I was good overall. Yeah.
Lovely. Ryan, for you to finish off?
Yeah, I don't think it was. The most amazing of derbies I've ever seen. It's not going to rank in my top 3, let's say. But it's not always about the game. It's not always about the 90 minutes. It's about moments. And that Amad moment is one of the better moments I've seen in a Manchester derby. I'm really happy for him. And you know what? We get bullied all the time, we do, by the fan bases. So it's just nice to have that. So for right now, I was really happy.
That's just it, Ryan. It's about the big moments, and Amad is racking up the big moments. That's Liverpool. That's Man City now. What do we need now? Tottenham next, Arsenal,
we'll
add
take
them in
Tottenham,
the FA Cup as well. Why not? Now it's that part of the show where we delve into some of the stats and the key takeaways from the game that was. Ryan, I said to you last week, do not come back here unless it's positive. We only want positive stats. And now we have some.
Listen, I told you all that I'd be back with positivity. I didn't quite expect that result, I'm not going to lie to you, but we've got some really good takeaways from this game as well. So let's delve straight into it with stat number 1, guys, which is Manchester City have only lost 4 of their 105 Premier League home games when they've been ahead at half-time. And to double down on that, 2 of those 4 have been to Manchester United, which was back in April when we won 3-2. I believe we were 2-0 down in that, weren't we? And we came back, which was absolutely amazing. That was round about my birthday. I'll never forget that. What an amazing stat that is. We've talked about whether this derby is one for the ages. Well, that really does double down on the fact that that could be the case. Flex, why do you think... What happened at half-time? What do you think Amorim changed? What did he say to the players?
I don't think we changed loads. I just think we just believed more. Like, I was watching that first half, even though we were 1-0 down, and I was really annoyed with that type of goal we conceded because it's just comical again, just silly. I know it was a bit of a deflection, cheap goal. And I just kept looking at City going, they're there. Like, Matheus Nunes does not want to be at left back. We're letting him off the hook. No one's going at him. No one's running beyond. Everyone's coming short. And we saw this clip of Amorim at half-time. The cameras picked up on it and I saw it and I've said, good. He got Hoyland just before and he's just saying, just curve your runs, make some runs, just go at them. And we just started to believe. And as the time was running down, we just committed more red shirts forward. It was that simple. So I think he just reminded them that there's a game here to be won or there's something to be taken out of this game. Go get it, because City are awful right now. Simple as that.
Yeah, I agree. Angie having that belief, was that what it came down to?
Yeah, 100%. And I think the one thing about Amorim that we're learning is he knows how to manage players. And I think he knows how to, like, more of the psychological side of it, he's spoken a lot about. So I genuinely believe as well, having a manager like that who can instill that confidence. And I think the fact that he did win with Sporting, it wouldn't surprise me if he was like, listen, I've beaten these clowns before. We can do this. I believe it. Listen to me and we will do this. So, yeah, I think belief's a massive part of it.
Good point. He had a blueprint. Yeah, I completely agree with that. And I'll move you on to the next stat here for... Oh, man, I can't tell you how much I love this guy. And there's talked about, his role as a captain, but he leads by example on the pitch, in my opinion. And he's now scored 21 of his 25 penalties for Manchester United in the Premier League. And that's the most. That is the most for Manchester United. He's just beat Wayne Rooney's record. Crookie, I'm going to come over to you about Bruno Fernandes. When he was stood over the ball, I just felt, in no way, shape or form did I think he was going to miss that.
No, I agree. To a certain extent. I remember commentating him blazing one into Stretford against Villa. So that was in the back of my mind when he stepped up. But fair play, because it's a pressure penalty.
Yeah, exactly.
The game is either, you're going to get something or you're not at that moment. If he missed it, it was game over and it would have been another very low moment. But he scored superbly into the corner. I loved his celebration in front of the City fans. And actually, I spoke to him afterwards and I liked the way he was sort of trying to calm everybody down. Don't get too excited. These are not in a great place either. It's only one win. We need to go on a consistent run now. And he's right, because there's almost no point in winning at City and then getting dumped out the cup by Spurs. So I think that's what we need to see now, consistency. But I do think, certainly post-Ten Hag, he has stepped up to the type of levels, Bruno Fernandes, where he was during that COVID season when, of course, he became a bit of a terrace darling.
Yeah, exactly that. Do you still think he's our most important player, Crookie?
Yeah, I probably do, to be fair.
Yeah.
Just because of his versatility. Starts the game playing deep alongside Ugarte. They're forced into a change. He goes up and plays in a number 10 role. I think he's such an intelligent footballer. He can do it all.
And I think he's our most important player as well, because even if he's going through bad patches of form, he somehow, some way, by hook or by crook, he finds a way to impact the game. Like, say what you want, whether his arms up, whether he's moaning, whether he is Marmite, you either love him or you hate him outside of our fan base, this, that, and other. Argue with yourself. He finds a way to impact the game when we need something.
The one thing I would say about Bruno Fernandes, and a lot of rival fans talk about his body language, and some of our own fans, and I've been there, is he really a captain? I've never heard a dissenting voice from the dressing room. I've never heard of any players having an issue with Bruno Fernandes and how demonstrative he is.
Yeah, that's an amazing point. And I'm inclined to agree. I'm a Bruno fan, man. I think he's absolutely incredible. Let's move you on to the next stat then, which is Manchester United have used a different centre-back duo, we should say trio, in the system in all 5 of their Premier League games under Ruben Amorim, which is more than their opening 11 games during the 24-25 season under Ten Hag and under Ruud as well. Now, I spoke about it. I mentioned it earlier on the panel that, in my opinion, he's kind of treated this handful of games as a bit of a pre-season. He's not afraid to shuffle the pack and find out what his best players are, which there's something to be said about Amorim's attitude there. And I do firmly believe in that. Ange, is that a good thing? Do you think that he's experimenting with this system, with this back three?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people have spoken about it. I said I would like to see if it is going to be, De Ligt, Martinez, Yoro, I would like to see them get a little bit more game time with each other. But that being said, it was the Manchester derby. You've got to take that into consideration. I would like to see those 3 being a little bit consistent if the games allow. But for me, a lot of people talking about the rotation, a lot of people not happy about it. But it's what he needs to do. Unless he rotates these players, he's not going to understand, what makes them tick, who works best with who, how they respond to different situations, different tactics. So this is what you want to see, because by the time the summer comes around, if Ineos and co do say, right, we've got X amount of players that we can get rid of, he's going to know exactly who cuts the mustard and who doesn't.
Yeah, exactly. And look, I'm stood next to the picture of Maguire here. I've had my opinion on him, Flex. I'm going to throw it over to you, though. When you consider the level of scrutiny that he has come under, is this one of the more impressive comebacks into a team that we've seen from him?
Well, yeah, and this is why there's a lack of excuse for so many other players that, could throw the treatment and the way they've been, perceived by the media and fans out the window. Because this is a guy, Harry Maguire had bomb threats to his house. Yeah. I remember that. Like, this is awful things. Hounded in the media, hounded in the fan base. I've been to pre-season tours in Dublin, in America, in Australia, where he's been heckled by our own fans, in those nations. It hasn't been a great time for him. Of course, he had a personal issue out there in Greece as well. Captaincy taken off him. England place in jeopardy. There's probably some times where he hasn't responded in the right way. I remember him cupping his ears when he scored against Liechtenstein or something silly like that. And you're going, Harry, come on. But he's had a few little cracks here and there. But ultimately, he's an example of don't moan about it. Get your head down. Work out how you're going to fit into this team. And when called upon, do your job. It's as simple as that. Do your job. And now he's looked at in a completely different way. Now we're looking at him going, well, in the back 3, this new gaffer's trusted him. He's done all right against Arsenal, against Havertz, done all right against Haaland. He's aggressive, he's been stepping in, he's good on the ball. As long as we don't expose him by leaving him high up on the halfway line by himself, which in this system won't happen, you're going, there's a role for him in the squad. So you're right, I do think he's a good testament of character and strength of character. Yes, we still need to be ruthless. Yes, we still need to be careful with, I'm not saying this means he should get a new contract and this, that and the other on improvement. Of course not. But I do think that we should sort of, give him his flowers really for coming through adversity, which some of our squad, if you look at what Rashford's been at, they can't seem to do it. Yeah,
you know what? Really well said. And his attitude cannot come into question. That has to be said. So, should we talk about Amad? Let's talk about the star boys. So let's move on. Amad Diallo has the joint most shot. He had the most joint shot touches, shots, opposition touches in the box as well. He absolutely dominated this game. We talk about how he pressed, and that's not the first time that he's pressed as well. It's not the first time that we've seen a goal come directly from Amad Diallo's attitude. And the most dangerous player in our squad right now, isn't he?
Yeah. Like I said earlier, he's undroppable in my opinion. I think he was brilliant in the game. There was a lot of players, there's a lot of reports about, a a lot of the players didn't even look half awake half the time across both teams. But yeah, he was brilliant. And I think at such a young age to be doing what he's doing, it's kind of embarrassing probably that he is the example being set to a 27-year-old Marcus Rashford at this point. But yeah, I think he's absolutely fantastic and he deserves all the praise that he gets.
Yeah, it's worth saying as well, I missed out there, number 1 for dribbles completed in that game as well. So he really was all over the place. Crookie, I think about Amad. I think about that goal against AC Milan way back when that little backwards header that he did. And he's always shown sparks, hasn't he? But does it make you question why Erik ten Hag perhaps didn't integrate him into the system more? Because as Ange alluded to earlier, he had a moment where he looked like he was going to break in, and then that just tailed off.
Yeah, certainly this season. You know, he was flavour of the month with Ten Hag at the end of last season after scoring that goal against Liverpool. But it was odd. You know, we were all in Istanbul when he picked Mazraoui as the number 10 and left Amad on the bench. Then he brings on Anthony ahead of Amad. And I think actually, for someone who usually is such an upbeat, happy kid, you saw he was furious when he was finally called upon in Istanbul. And for me, that was the moment really where a lot of United fans completely fell out of love with Erik ten Hag. The dribbling stat is interesting because that shows bravery. And I think actually that's what some of our players lacked in the first half. You've touched on it, belief, bravery, that they could go there and get something. But he was there right from the start. Bit unlucky in the first half of the shot he put wide when he was just offside anyway. But he is fearless, isn't he? And I hope he keeps that fearlessness. I'm sure he will.
Yeah, and let's double down on the Amad stats because I've got one more for you, which he's been directly involved in 6 goals in his last 6 Premier League appearances. But it's quite nice to see here, 1 goal, 5 assists. So we're seeing he's unselfish. He's prepared to, hit the ball into the right places. Flex, do you like to see that it's not just the goals, it's the assists as well?
100%. I mean, the game against Everton where he got 2, and he put it on a plate for Xerxes, where again he could try and take the glory for himself. I said it then that the humility of him to just play the game in the right way. Like, I don't need the headlines. I don't need all the spotlight, all the attention. The right thing for the team is to make sure I put this on a plate for Xerxes and he can put it into an open net and the job's done. And that you need more players like that in your team. Of course, you need ability. You need exciting skills. You want bags of ability, but it's the temperament you need. It's the humility that you need. It's the building the team camaraderie. If we are in a better position than me to score, I'm going to give you the ball. It's as simple as that. I know, like, if it's a hot old school number 9, it's like, give me the ball, I'm going to score the goals. I get that. But from your creators, especially in these 10 positions and, right wing back positions, which is that your job is to supply and of course and score. But I just like that he can do it both, and he's humble enough to just do what's right for the team. And if we had 11 players like him or 11 players like Mazraoui with the temperament and that application, and then the sort of, the ability can come second, would be a much better football team. Yeah,
absolutely. Crookie, when you talk about longevity in this Ruben Amorim squad, where does Amad rank in it?
Very important, I think. Yeah, again, the versatility, the fact he can play as a wing-back, he can play as a 10. You'd probably play him as a false 9 if you wanted to. I think him, Ugarte, Fernandes, I still think Højlund, and by the way, he's answered some critics in the last couple of weeks as well from this panel. I think they're going to be key. He's obviously a big fan of De Ligt because he keeps experimenting with the back 3, but he's been a mainstay. Martinez is an interesting one, but he had a brilliant game at the weekend. So I think slowly but surely what we're going to see now, we're going to see a settled lineup from Amorim because he's filling out his squad now. He's learning who he can rely upon and who can do what. Maybe not over this festive period because the games come thick and fast, but once we get into January, I think you will see a more regular United 11 and he's going to be right in it. Yeah,
that's what you're saying, Crookie, is there's hope and there's a foundation, and that's what
it's the hope that kills you.
It's the hope, but it's the hope that kills you. Well said. But there we go. I said there'd be positivity, and there was positivity. Flex, back to you.
Now, the big games are coming thick and fast for Ruben Amorim as the Carabao Cup Quarter Final takes place this Thursday against Tottenham Hotspur at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. At a win, we'll take United one step closer to consecutive seasons with silverware, and we're making a habit of that because we did it the season before that as well with the Carabao Cup and then FA Cup last year. But Spurs come into this one hot after absolutely destroying Southampton 5-0 with Russell Martin consequently being sacked after that. It's important, isn't it, Crookie? It's another cup competition. Actually, it'd be interesting to see how Amorim sort of attacks this, because one thing we learned about Erik ten Hag very early on is that it don't matter what opposition it was, whether it's Newport away, whether it was Wigan away in the cup, or I think Reading maybe at home.
Barnsley at home.
Barnsley, that was it, Barnsley. strongest team. Casemiro was out there, 4-time Champions League winner, Bruno playing, Rashford, all playing. None of this rotation stuff. So it'll be interesting to see how Ruben, what he does with this. But also managing the Europa League, we spoke about how important that is. Does the Carabao Cup, is that the competition that might have to take a little bit of a backseat, or is it no, every game we need to win, play the strongest team?
It doesn't take a back seat for me. I'm in the market for trophies, and we win this game. We're in the semi-final. It's a competition we won a couple of years ago, of course. So I think he's got to go strong. I think he will go strong. That doesn't mean he won't rotate certain players.
Game in a couple of days at home as well.
Obviously, Mason Mount out, so you'd expect Cobby will probably start this game on the back of the derby. He might give Malacia another run out of wing back. Who knows? Maybe Anthony might get a rare start. Xerxes potentially could come in. So there are options there. And we've probably got more options than Spurs at this moment in time, particularly defensively. They're obviously without Romero and Van der Ven, their two most important centre-backs. Yeah, so that gives you a chance. And listen, this is going to come back and haunt me, but it's Tottenham. And, I don't think it's a terrible draw. I think there's worse draws we could have got. I'd rather be going there than going back to Arsenal or playing Liverpool. So I think if you're serious about challenging for trophies, you go to Tottenham on Thursday and you win the game.
How important is it, Ange, for us to, lay down that marker and push on from the City victory? Because, yes, I know it's not in the league and you want back-to-back wins in the Premier League, which is obviously really important. But in terms of consecutive games, like Crook was saying, there's no point going away at the Etihad to win. And if you're getting bumped out of the Carabao Cup, let's go.
I agree. I think every game is important. Like Crookie said, I want to see us winning every game. If we're not winning every game, I want to see a good performance. I want some positive takeaways for every game. The thing with the Premier League is, bottom half of the table, whether we like it or not, we cannot, with 1 or 2 games, change that. We have just got to have the mentality. We've just got to plod on with this Premier League and hope that some of the teams that are above us, who are maybe not used to being in certain positions, maybe fatigue, maybe other things, maybe people will start to drop off in the new year. Manchester United can capitalise on it, but we have to be realistic with what we can achieve with the Premier League. So when it comes to trophies, that is something that we've 100% got to take seriously. And I think with, like Rookie said, there are a lot of players that could affect this game. I know that the Spurs game wasn't great when we played them at home, but I think we were at that game. It was a tough day for us. But I agree with you in a way of it's Spurs, and I think that Ruben Amorim has got enough in his locker to know how to get a result against them versus the Spurs manager who's just going to do what he wants to do. I don't think he's actually, he's going to play one way. Ruben, it's probably the easiest prep Amorim's had to do yet because you know exactly what to expect from this team. And I am confident that he'll be able to get a result.
The bizarre thing is he's actually set up for Marcus Rashford, isn't it? With that pace to get in behind the high line, the diagonal balls. So who knows, maybe him and Garnacho both come straight back into the starting line.
They really, really could. I mean, on that, Ryan, firstly, I was going to ask you, with Ruben Amorim's setup, we did absolutely destroyed at Old Trafford. It should have been 6, let's be honest. We got absolutely, torn to shreds in that Eric Ten Hag system. Now with this system, more secure, the players are learning it more. Does that make us better equipped to go and deal with what Tottenham do, which is play that full throttle way that Ange likes?
Yes, and actually,
they're under pressure too, by the way.
They're under pressure too. And let's be objective here. It's one of those.
Win that trophy, haven't they? That Ange says he's going to.
Oh yeah, guaranteed.
Second season, mate. Always been things in the second season, mate.
Yeah, they've got to win that trophy.
It's massive pressure.
Must win for them, and he has put that unnecessary pressure on them by saying that, by the way. But I think. Yeah, when we got slapped up at home by Spurs, there's no other way for it. Yeah. I was there and it was miserable. And you're right, it should have been 4, 5 or 6. The scoreline actually flattered us. That was at a time where playing at Old Trafford was working against us. Actually being at home, there was more pressure to perform at home. We got into a really nasty negative space when it came to Old Trafford. Whereas I say this, and again, I'm going to say what Crookie said, it might come back to haunt me, but you want a confident Spurs right now. You want a confident Spurs. You don't want an underdog Spurs. I want Spurs to come, at us with everything that they've got, expecting to win because they've just won 5-0. Because I think that we will, the way that Amorim will set up, I think we'll counter them. We'll beat them. For me, I think it's like you said. I think it's a good fixture to have. I really do.
You lot are talking about the trophies, right? And I've been talking about this. And do you know what? I'm not going to lie. I feel like because we've been treated to a couple of trophies in a couple of years, right? And we've not been any better for it because we've been awful. I've just been so hyper-focused on our performance and our development rather than like another Carabao Cup. And for me, I'm not trying to downplay this game at all because it's Spurs, so I think we can get at them, we'll get chances, so I think we can beat them. But I'd much rather the 3 points against Bournemouth. I honestly, I know we don't want to go out of competitions, but I'll be deadly honest with you. If we went out Spurs on Thursday night or on penalties, whatever, it wouldn't be great or whatever. Just go and beat Bournemouth. Give me some league form. Give me some, Europa League, yes. Obviously, FA Cup, we've got to go back to Arsenal. That's a tough ask anyway. But I'm not saying don't go for it. I'm not saying play a weakened team because it's all about but Bournemouth is in a couple of days. And even if we go through to the next round of Carabao Cup, I've learnt that, the trophy situation, we have to be careful with it. It's important for Man United to win trophies. Of course it is. That's what we do. And in our worst moments, we picked up 2. So great. But I would much rather focus on just looking better, being better, and getting some consistency in the league. And we should have both. I want both.
I was going to say, I want it all.
Both.
I want it all. Why can't we have it all?
Why do the 2 have to be isolated?
Yeah, they don't. Do you know what it is? It's just, I think, I'm honest, if I'm honest, I'm scarred from the trophies, we got in Wembley, and because it was at the expense of us as a team, and we went backwards. We didn't get better from winning them trophies. But actually, what I need to program myself to do is go, we've got a better gaffer now. It's going to be all right, Flex. This is a bit of therapy for myself. Honestly, I'm so...
You're in a safe space, Flex. Just get it out.
Exactly.
Get it all out.
I've just been so... Before, I was so fixated on these trophies, and after the FA Cup, I don't care, Ten Hag can stay, look at us now. I had sunglasses on streams, I had the fake FA Cup, I was parading it around Westfield. I was. That's just me. I'm a bit silly like that, right? Carabao Cup, I said, we're back. First trophy at the first time of asking. We've got Eric Ten Hag. So I'm scarred from all them things. I'm I just want to be a good team. Get me back-to-back points.
Yeah, but winning breeds confidence.
That's true.
So,
that is true. Exactly. We've got a much better chance of beating Bournemouth at home off the back of beating City and knocking out Spurs.
Otherwise, it feels like one step forward.
Yeah, maybe I'm being a bit too pedantic, guys. I need.
And listen, don't start getting complacent and that sense of entitlement when it comes to winning trophies. I know we've won a lot as United. They still matter.
Yeah, I'm almost being a bit I've done that twice. I've been to Wembley consecutive seasons. True.
Not in the mood to go to Wembley again.
Yeah, you're right. That is what. You're right. That is what it's all about.
Come on,
I needed that, guys. I needed
Pull yourself
that.
together.
Predictions for both games, starting from Ryan coming down the table. I want your prediction for Spurs and your prediction for Bournemouth.
Okay, Spurs we win 2-1. Bournemouth we win 3-1.
Nice and straight to the point. I like that. Ange, what you got?
I'm gonna go for a big result against Spurs. I'm gonna go not that big. But I'm gonna go with a 3-0 win.
3-0.
Yeah, wow. I'm gonna go.
Give
with
them what they gave us. Revenge.
Yeah.
Hold free.
And then the Bournemouth game, I think that's gonna be tough. I'm gonna go 2-1.
2-1, yeah. Okay. And 3-0 Spurs. Crookie.
I mean, that would be something, wouldn't it?
Yes.
I'm going to go for back-to-back 2-1 wins, but we might have to do it from behind in at least one of those games.
Yeah, no, just like the last 2 games. It's no different from that. I'm going to go for... I'm going to change. I said that on another one, it would be 2-1 United, but I'm going to go for 1-1 and then we go for on penalties against Spurs.
I'll take that.
Which would also be nice. That would be nice to just dump them out a couple of pens. And I think Bournemouth, confidence will be buzzing from the Spurs game. 2-0 win.
Yes.
2-0 win. So there you go. It's unanimous. We all think we're going to win. That's all we've got time for on this week's episode of Inside Devils. A big thank you, as always, to Alex Crook, Angelina Kelly, and Ryon Scott-Douglas. We'll be back for another episode of Inside Devils, hopefully with 2 wins in the back pocket in the Carabao Cup and the Premier League next time we see you. Take care, guys. Have a good one.